The sound of laughter was deafening. It bounced off the walls, spilling across the golden glow of the chandeliers and mixing with the faint rhythm of the jazz band. I remember holding my wine glass, pretending to laugh at something one of my colleagues said, when I noticed him. Daniel. He stood by the doorway, half in shadow, his eyes fixed on me. For a moment I thought I was imagining him. He wasn't supposed to be there, not at my company's annual gala, not when I told him it was just employees only. But there he was, his expression unreadable. And then I realized what he'd seen. Greg, my manager, still had his hand on my lower back. A casual touch, at least that's how I told myself it looked. But Daniel knew. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his chest rose and fell slowly as if he was trying not to explode right there in front of everyone. He didn't say a word. Didn't shout, didn't make a scene. He just turned and walked out. And somehow that silence, the way he left without looking back, hurt more than any outburst could have. 1 hour earlier, the party had started beautifully. Greg was charming as always, making jokes that made everyone laugh, his confidence lighting up the room. I'd worked under him for 3 years. He'd been my mentor, my friend, and lately something else. I never planned for it to happen. It started with long hours and late-night calls about projects that slowly turned personal. I told myself it was harmless. Daniel had been distant lately, buried in his work at the construction firm. We barely spoke at dinner, and when we did, it felt like talking to a stranger. So when Greg started giving me attention, compliments, warmth, laughter, it filled a space I didn't even know had gone cold. But tonight I wasn't thinking about that. Tonight I just wanted to forget the guilt, the distance, the tension. Then Greg pulled me a little closer as he whispered a joke. My laugh came out forced. That's when I saw Daniel. And everything inside me froze. The drive home. He didn't pick up my calls. I left the party early, ignoring the confused looks from my colleagues. I kept calling as I drove home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I reached the house, his truck was gone. The lights were off. I went inside, still wearing my gown, and the silence hit me like a slap. His shoes were gone from the hallway. The framed photo from our wedding, us laughing under a shower of petals, was missing from the wall. I ran to the bedroom. Half of his closet was empty. A folded note sat on the bed. I saw everything I needed to see. Don't call me. That was it. No anger, no explanation. Just those words, sharp enough to cut through every lie I'd been telling myself. I sank to the floor and cried until my throat ached. 3 days later, he didn't come home. I called his sister, his best friend, even his site manager at work. No one knew where he was. They all said the same thing. He's quiet, but he's hurting. The silence was unbearable. The house felt wrong without him. The smell of his cologne fading from the air. His coffee mug still by the sink. Every morning I woke hoping to hear the door creak open, to see his boots by the rug. But it never happened. And the more days passed, the more I realized something I hadn't before. Daniel wasn't the kind of man who screamed or threw things when betrayed. He was the kind who walked away, shut the door, and never came back. A visit from Greg. On the 4th day, Greg came by. He looked nervous, hands in his pockets. "I just wanted to check on you," he said softly. "You okay?" I stared at him, realizing how wrong everything suddenly felt. His presence didn't comfort me anymore. It disgusted me. Because no matter how flattering his attention had been, no matter how lonely I'd felt, what I'd done to Daniel could never be justified. "He saw us," I whispered. "He saw you touch me." Greg exhaled, rubbing his face. "Look, Emma, these things happen. He'll calm down." I almost laughed. "You don't know him. He's not coming back." And when Greg tried to reach for my hand, I pulled away. The warmth I used to feel from him was gone. All that remained was regret. "Please leave," I said quietly. "You've done enough." 2 weeks later, Daniel still hadn't returned. His sister finally called me. He's staying at a motel near the lake, she said reluctantly. He doesn't want to see anyone. He's broken, Emma. The words hit me like a punch. Broken. That night I drove to the lake. The air was cold, the sky a dull gray. His truck was parked outside one of the small cabins. I stood there for a long time before knocking on the door. When it opened, I barely recognized him. His eyes were red, his beard unshaven. But what scared me most wasn't the anger. It was the emptiness. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice hoarse. "I needed to see you," I said, my voice trembling. "Please just listen. Nothing happened with Greg. It was just..." He cut me off with a bitter laugh. "Don't. I saw enough." I stepped closer. "Daniel, I made a mistake. I was lonely and lonely." His tone sharpened. "You were lonely, so you let another man put his hands on you? In front of everyone." Tears blurred my vision. "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," he said. "I loved you, Emma. God knows I tried. I worked overtime, saved for the house, for our future. And while I was breaking my back, you were..." "What?" "Playing the victim." His words sliced through me, leaving nothing but raw shame. "I don't know how to fix this," I whispered. "You can't." And then he closed the door. The quiet collapse. Weeks turned into months. Daniel filed for separation. I didn't fight it. There was no point. Every attempt to reach him was met with silence. I left letters, emails, messages. Nothing. He'd erased me completely. I stopped going to work, too ashamed to face my colleagues. Greg tried to reach out once more, but I ignored him. The company eventually let me go. I sold the house. Moved into a small apartment. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake replaying that moment at the party. His eyes meeting mine, the quiet pain in them. I realized that while I'd been searching for attention, I'd destroyed the one person who gave me something far deeper. Loyalty. 6 months later, I saw him again at a grocery store. He looked better, stronger. His hair was shorter, his beard neatly trimmed. And beside him was a woman. She was laughing at something he said, touching his arm lightly. He saw me too. For a second our eyes met. I expected anger, maybe contempt, but there was nothing, just calm indifference. He gave a polite nod and walked past, his hand resting gently on the woman's back, the same way Greg once touched mine. Only this time it wasn't casual. It was love. That was the moment I knew it was really over. 1 year later, people say time heals. Doesn't. It just dulls the edges until you stop bleeding every time you think about it. I've rebuilt parts of my life. Found a small job, started therapy. I tell myself I've learned from it, that I've changed. But the truth is, some things you never forgive yourself for. Sometimes I drive past that old event hall where the party was held. I can still see the lights, hear the laughter, feel that moment when everything fell apart. I see Daniel walking out in silence while the party laughed on. And that silence follows me everywhere. Epilogue. A few months ago, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph, our wedding photo. The one that had gone missing from the wall. On the back, written in Daniel's handwriting, were just 3 words. "I did love you." I sat there for a long time staring at it, realizing that love, real love, isn't loud. It doesn't demand or threaten. Just is. And when it's gone, it doesn't leave with fireworks or shouting. It leaves quietly, like a man walking out of a party full of laughter, never to return.